Ladder League is back, and already in week one, we've got plenty of incredible races to go over. I'm very excited. We're going to start with Rung 3, Justin versus Senor versus Wazip. Certainly, all eyes are on Justin in this one. Nobody knows what to expect. He hasn't done a run in months since GDQ was the last full run he did. Trying to de-rust very quickly, coming back into this one, and honestly, the early returns are not great on how fast he's able to get back into it. This invasion, the escape, not played the best. I mean, this game is just very hard to de-rust now. I know he in the past he did similar things in previous ladder leagues, and it was a lot better off. But as time goes on, we keep finding new strats, just packing every room in the run with just as many little strats as we can, and that just means there's so much more you have to relearn every time you come back. It makes it harder and harder, and it feels like the instant de-rust into tournament run is not such a good formula anymore. I mean, even stuff like Arch Clip, because it's different now. You're not doing the auto dropout. You have a different camera. I mean, that hasn't stopped him from also doing some cool stuff. I mean, bringing out the 1P2C ground shots is definitely not something I expected. But once he gets everything going, this could be a very fast level for him because of it. But that's still going to put him a bit behind coming into pod race. Every runner goes for Godfrod here, and I will just tell you that Senor and Wazit both got 1 out of 2 Godfrods. There is some time for Justin to make up if he plays it very well, and he is going to get the first lap right here. Gets that height boost. Clean Godfrod on lap 1, but he's going to go a little too far on that out-of-bounds movement afterwards. Ends up overshooting the regular Podfrod spot. And it looks like he's considering going for the lap 2 Godfrod backup, but he ends up not doing it. He's just going to drive the track to the end of it, and as you do when you're kind of driving at the end of lap 2, it's a pretty rare situation, but you do just want to go and do kind of the lap 3 ending as you would normally do. But he's going to turn his player pretty awkwardly. Player 2's not going to get on the finish line. He's going to be backwards with an entire lap to drive. That's going to force the level reset out of Justin. An immense time loss. Really hard to come back from. Now, here we have Wazip and Camino now, several minutes ahead of second place, fighting for first with Senor. But his out-of-bounds movement on this Camino button skip is going to pop him right back in. So he's just going to give up on the trick, take the buttons, and not do so perfectly, I'll say. Now, Camino clip for Wazip also doesn't go so well. He just doesn't... I think he's a little too close to the panel. He ends up walking off, resetting his spawn there. A couple attempts at Camino clip, not going to go his way. So it is going to be a fair amount of time loss here. Certainly not like a mega run-ending disaster, nothing like that pod race we just saw. But when we're talking about Wazip trying to get first place above Senor, he needs to get everything he can. You can't be giving up big disasters when the runner ahead of you is just like several minutes faster as a baseline. So that also does give Justin a bit of room, a bit of progress towards his comeback. But we see him in Spaceport. This is just another kind of de-rust moment. He's going to miss the player 3 glitch the first time, and now player 1 is going to switch to C3PO, and he's still attempting player 3 glitch. And this just doesn't work. You cannot get player 3 glitch on player 1. So he's going to try this a few times, something that is just physically impossible. And, eventually he realizes it, but only after he's lost about a minute here. And so this is what I mean when I say, like, Justin is just rusty. This kind of thing won't happen to him, like, ever again, because now he knows exactly what's going on here. But by, having his de-rust run be the tournament race, he's just putting himself in a position where this can happen in his first run back, in the tournament. If he had done a few runs before, I think that things would have been a lot cleaner in a spot like this. Now, this leaves Senor, who did come in a pretty, big favorite, and he's going to really live up to that. We see him implementing the new tech we've been finding, all over the run. He just has a really solid time. He's never going to let the other two into the race after their early time losses. He's just going to keep building and building his lead, going for stuff like Pixel Bucket, all over the place. We have good levels from Senor, and that's going to give him a final time of 2:19.11, just under a minute off of PB. With saves in a race, that's a pretty solid time. And I think Senor, maybe you'll point out stuff he could have done better for sure, but he absolutely got the job done here, and a 2:19 is absolutely going to give him a chance at a leapfrog up into Rung 1. And yeah, that's where this race ends. Senor, big lead. Justin really never got that comeback going. He started to have the momentum, and Spaceport happened. It really set him back again. This is also Wazip's tournament debut. That 2:23, not the greatest. 2 minutes off of PB, and it's a PB I know he can beat too. So it's not bad enough for me to say like I'm really concerned about Wazip as a tournament runner long term, but definitely not the foot he really wanted to get off to. Still, second place is pretty good here. You're beating a runner higher seeded than you. Can't be too mad about the result for Wazip. Now this takes us into Rung 1. We have, Zach, a very big favorite, considered just by far the best runner in the game, but he's going up against a couple of runners who have a very high ceiling that can get a little bit messy. In the pod race, everyone gets lap 1 God Fraud, and Zach and Dragon are both going to also get it on lap 3, but you see Jared just going to miss that hype boost, come back in bounds, and he's going to start off about 30 seconds behind the other runners, When it's Rung 1, you're going to expect everyone to get these tricks. There's really not room to miss God Fraud or anything like that. Now, this brings us to Zach's Camino clip, where he is going to not clip out of bounds this first try. I think he, right up against the panel, spawns on top of the bricks, and the second time he's just going to overforce the bricks, and he's got to use the panel and watch the cutscene. Pretty bad time loss, and also, if you notice, he killed a couple of droids in there. Something else he's not going to want to see. And it only gets worse coming into Droid Factory. Interestingly, Dragon doesn't go for Pixel Bucket, so this is, Dragon just took the lead on Camino. Zach could have had it back here, but he's going to miss Pixel Bucket. I think it's a real problem. He's sort of used to every time he does this trick, he's in a VC, he says clear comms, and that puts him in the mindset to hit the trick. But he's on his own in this run. No one to tell to clear the comms, so that's just going to force a miss out of him. And, coming into the Jedi battle now, because he killed so many droids, he had the bad Camino clip, he killed some extra droids, this isn't going to go very fast either. It's, 3 pretty slow levels in a row in episode 2. And that's going to set Dragon up in a very good position. And yeah, into episode 4 now, it's again Zach going for this weird Han setup for Trash Skip. Not going to work. And now Dragon, big lead. Zach and Jared fighting closely for second place. This brings us to Jabba's Palace, where Jared is going to get airdropped on by a Gamorrean guard. And that is devastating. He's got to go all the way back for a new helmet. You know how bad this is. Jared now like a minute behind Zach. And this leaves Dragon, pretty comfortably in first place. Now, he's playing, honestly, incredibly well in this run. He's off to a great start. After this gold Carcoon, he's going to be on world record pace. Like, literally, community best split times. Even though he had saves, this is just an incredible start by Dragon. And that record pace is going to continue into Endor, but he's going to have just a little bit of trouble on 12 button skip. Nothing major, this isn't like a Melovro moment or anything, but this isn't going to help his chances of world record either. You can't take a time loss like this, but he's still completely in first place in the run until something else happens. So, Dragon, you can see where Yara the runners are entering Coruscant. Dragon is not, and, well, he is in Coruscant. We just can't see it. His OBS doesn't pick up his game. That's the big thing. So, he's going to, in Coruscant, or in Chancellor, he tabs out of the game, has to, restart OBS. It's a pretty annoying time loss for him. He's also just going to get, distracted and flustered by all this. I know he missed CSJ at least once. So, kind of, his sum total of all of this is he's losing about 40 seconds. Yeah, really annoying stuff from him. But, the other runners, obviously, it's Coruscant. Nothing bad is going to happen, right? Zach takes a death. Zach takes a very bad death. I mean, I certainly didn't see that coming, but it's still going to be a lot of time save for Zach as long as he doesn't like die again. But yeah,
Um,
it'll be really interesting though to see Zach's Coruscant split
Zach
time.
is on one
Oh
heart.
my God,
Zach
he
died
did it
again.
again! How does this happen? How is this possible? You can't do that! You can't do
This
that!
is
On that note, Dragon is just going to close out this run. He recovers from that time loss pretty well. Has a great end game, like we all know he's capable of getting, and he's going to tap in the win. Final time 2:17:37. Very well done by Dragon. Um, that time, if you take out the like 40 seconds in Chancellor, that was mostly tech issues. You have a 2:16, that's a PB on our hands with saves and all that. Really good run, with what else he could control. The actual gameplay was fantastic. And he books a ticket to Indianapolis. He's going to be the 1 seed in playoffs. Very excited to meet him there. And I think he can go very far in the playoffs. Definitely a threat to take first place. As for Zach, it definitely felt pretty bad in the moment with sort of the streak of time losses in episode 2. It felt like they kept building, but each of those time losses was honestly pretty small. 2:18:21, really the only big thing was the 2 deaths in Coruscant. So if he didn't have that, it would be a mid 2:17, and I wouldn't really have any concerns at all about his time. So I think he's going to be completely fine. Not as certain about that on Jared. We know, Ladder League Season 1, he started in Rung 1 with a loss, and that put him down a really bad path going forward. I think he's a better runner now than he was then, but the competition is also tougher. There's not going to be a free ride like he got at the end of Ladder League Season 1. And, he's going to have to really put up some good runs to make his own way into playoffs, but that will very likely happen. Up next, we have Rung 6. We saw all three of these runners in the first LCQ qualifying with the top 3 times. It was Coolison taking first place in that race, but since then, Charizard has gotten a pretty big PB that makes him feel like the favorite going into this one. And it's like the LCQ, we're going to see Charizard as the only one to go for God Fraud. And just like the LCQ, he's going to miss it on lap 1. Still has a chance to take the lead if he can get it on lap 3, and this time he will capitalize. You see that hype boost. Charizard going to be about 20 seconds ahead out of Pod Race. Meanwhile, Mellowbro, after his death, he's going to be in a pretty awkward position where he's speeding towards the end of that canyon, and if he calls in, he might have enough to get there. He doesn't think he does, though. Takes an extra death, and then he has too much speed. That's going to push both his players inbounds, and now he's got to drive the end of this lap backwards. It's not a pod fraud miss or anything, but it is going to be pretty slow. And coming into Maul now, he's going to make that deficit even bigger when he misses DM1 a good few times. A pretty bad episode 1, all things considered, by Mellowbro. Charizard's still maintaining a lead in episode 4, coming into Junlin, but he misses Slow Force. And honestly, this trick, a bit of a problem for him. We see him miss Slow Force a lot, is what I'll say. And that's going to force him. He doesn't know the EJP man out of bounds. He's just going to do the satellite jump. That makes it a pretty big time loss to miss Slow Force. And when Coolison over here is able to nail it, that's going to make things pretty hard for Charizard. And Coolison takes the lead coming out of Junland. Now, Charizard coming into these Death Star levels, though, he's going to really try to answer back. And we see some really good gameplay. Back-to-back golds on both of these levels for Charizard. Very well done from him. And just to contrast, Coolison, here is him not playing up to his gold on Princess. Little bit of trouble jumping into this tube, and he misses the brick on that one. And it's going to spiral into a pretty big time loss. Put Charizard right back into the lead. And that's going to continue to episode 6, where Charizard has just 5 torpedoes coming up in this barrier, can't afford a blank, and there is a blank. And again, now a double target. A blank I can get, like torpedo targeting is hard, it's weird, it's a bit random feeling at times, but a double target is just like a mental mistake that you can't make. Now he's got to get 2 extra torpedoes, and when that one blanks, he needs 3 more torpedoes from the core. It's going to just spiral this ITDS into a massive time loss. And it's not going to get better on Chancellor, going for CSJ, and he does get out of bounds first try, but he's having trouble climbing up here. And that trouble is really going to get worse at the very top. He's just a little too far forward to hit the slope. Eventually does get a little boost of height, and then when you're close to the top, you can press A, do a little fly up, and that can bring you in bounds, but if it's not enough to get in bounds, then you lose your height, fall, and die, and all of that time you spent trying to climb up is gone. You have to reattempt the trick. Very tough scenes, and that's going to mean Coolison has the lead coming into CCT. This crunch time at the end of the run, anything can happen. These are hard levels, and Coolison just absolutely answers the call. First try DV1, first try DVT, and we're going to see him in DV3 with the helmet on. He's going to get it first try. This was an incredible CCT by Coolison. Exactly what he needed to just give Charizite and Mellow no chance of catching up. Really strong finish. A 7-second gold is going to put him out on top. 225.37. And yeah, Charizite's endgame also not the best. That did give Melivro a bit of a cosmetic comeback there, making it under a minute deficit. But I think Melivro, honestly, just not quite as fast as these other runners. He gets off to that bad start. It was just always tough for him. I think he has more potential than this, but like we really need to see him improving his PB, I think, if he wants to stay alive in the ladder league. His consistency has been fine in my opinion, but it's his top speed is really falling behind a lot of the runners around him. So we're going to need to see that improve. Coolison, though, great win with the PB and a real chance to leapfrog 225.37. Let's remember that time as we go forward into Rung 5 race, where Colton, obviously a huge favorite with his recent PBs, just absolutely, lapping everyone around him in the ladder. But we have Quasar and Phantom, a couple of very strong, very consistent runners coming up next to him. A little concerned, though, especially on Quasar's end. He hasn't played in like a month. So, a little less extreme than the Wii Super D-Rust run, but you really wonder if he's going to be at his best in this race. Now, Colton has a chance to really strike first here on Godfraud if he can get it. Neither of the other runners go for it, but that is not going to be a good height boost on lap 1, and he is going to have to bail on the trick. One more chance again on lap 3, but he misses. He just doesn't have the right angle on his players, doesn't even get a chance to go for it. That is 2 Godfraud misses from Colton. Meanwhile, though, Gilded Phantom not having a perfect pod race himself, he's going to enter this cutscene, and something slightly weird is going to happen on the other side of it. He goes for zero death, but he kind of adjusts to the left there, and I don't really understand it, but now his camera and his angle is really weird, and he ends up not hitting the mid-lap trigger, and he almost exits the level. Doesn't have to do that, he is going forward, but that's going to be, an entire extra lap he has to drive. Very bad miss. Now, Colton attempting Camino button skip. He is going to get R2 R4 under the floor, and you can kind of back that up. There's like a weird drop-in warp thing at the end of the by the panel, but it is very slow. Not much slower to just get the buttons. Has to do it with one player, unfortunately. That's pretty tough. Meanwhile, Quasar is going to come through and hit this first try. That's going to put Quasar into the lead early game over Colton. A little bit unexpected start. And the lead is going to grow here. I mean, this is, when I say Colton is inconsistent, I did, that was my concern about him. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Where it's like, who with a sub 220 loses all this time on gunship second barrier skip? It just, there's a lot of little, levels like this where you just look through his splits and he has just, several pretty bad ones, This is, a good example where I think, 3 of his last 5 gunships coming into this run were over 2 minutes, and that was another one. Now, Phantom on Dooku, there's only one reason I would be showing you Dooku. You don't want to do this. I mean, come on, man. So, all that said, Quasar has a really nice start. His runners around him are falling, but he is going to miss the trigger on Trash Skip out of bounds. Now, he misses it in the better way. You'd rather be too far back because you can attempt this backup. But it's not going to go much better for him here. Now, you see basically all of Chewie sticking out through the door, but it's just going to go wrong way. It's really awkward to hit this transition. You know, you go up, you go down, it feels like you're not going to hit it at all, even though you're right inside the door. But Quasar, he's going to pop in bounds after all that time invested in Trash Kit. That's going to make this just an absolute disaster of a DSE for him, like a 2-minute time loss. And this is where Colton starts to take the lead. You know, he doesn't have the same level of mistakes going on in this mid game. Really nice episode 6 he's able to string together, and this cartoon I think really highlights it. But yeah, Colton definitely able to take the lead we expected him to have, even if it it took him a little longer than. Now, Quasar and Chancellor unfortunately did not get the memo about Ewok skip. It's sort of a tough thing about coming in and derusting, is you don't have time to stay up to date on everything. But really, the suspense in this race is, will Phantom get the leapfrog? His BPT is a 225.07, and we saw Coolison's time a 225.37, and that miss on Boom Skip is really going to do him in. And yeah, Coolison getting the leapfrog, getting up to rung 4. Meanwhile, Colton running away with the win, 222.32. Except, no, it isn't. He missed the line. Let's check it out here. Obviously, he gets, you get normal modified GTF setup. He's a little bit low on Lando, but not that much. And this angle looks fine. I'm honestly really surprised this line didn't hit. But that's going to leave him still with a win, but not by as much as he would want. Phantom and Quasar not putting up their best times, really either of them. Quasar especially, though, like, that's 6 minutes off PB. That's just terrible. His early game was pretty good, but, starting from DSE, there were plenty of mistakes after. It was really tough for him. Phantom does just fine, but you want to see him do better than this. Yeah, so Phantom gets leapfrog down to rung 6. Quasar in the bottom rung next week. Sorry, Phantom stays in rung 5. Quasar moves down to rung 6, which is the bottom rung. As for Colton, I said he was in a good position to get a leapfrog. Obviously, that missing the trigger at the end is going to make that a bit tough. I'm not going to tell you his final time. I am going to tell you instead about rung 4. And look at those PBs, 14 seconds apart coming into it. The concern here, honestly, was about Laser's preparedness, right? He hasn't done any runs until, like, the day before. He did basically a no reset, and actually completely blew those concerns away when he was 220 pace into Bespin. Now, he missed the trigger there. I don't know how this keeps happening to people. I don't know. I feel like you got to take that safer than everyone is right now. Big time loss, but he still finished that out at 222.06. Kind of completely ended any concerns about his rust factor and shows he has a ton of PB potential coming into it. PB potential that will not really be exhibited on negotiations. Really tough spot where player 2 has 1 heart coming into the buttons and not able to avoid a death. Studs explode everywhere. Both players are going to pick some up, and player 2 is going to get pushed into a silver stud right as he dies. So Laser's going to drop out. Player 2 dies, loses all the studs, but that 1 stud on the way to the stud bank is going to still get collected posthumously. And now studs on both players coming into the end here. Very tough to drop them all. Gotta, swap back and forth these players. Finally gets out, but not until he loses 20 seconds on the level. And now coming into Godfraud, Laser hoping to, get some time back here. Certainly he knows how to do this trick, but he's not going to get it on lap 1. Does eventually, though, come into lap 3. Gets Godfraud here, so a completely fine pod race, but not the start he really wanted. He has to pull a bit of a recovery to even get this one, so not the fastest lap 3. And a very similar situation going to come up for Daime. He's going to miss lap 1 Godfraud. Just doesn't get the height boost and has to come back in bounds. But again, just like Laser, he's going to come back on lap 3, and there he is going to get it. So, 1 for 2 for both of them. Decent pod race, but not the best. But this brings us to EJP Man, who only very recently implemented this trick. I know he was very nervous about his consistency coming in, but that is not going to show at all when he gets it on lap 1, and then shows up on lap 3, and he gets it there too. 2 for 2 for EJP Man. A massive massive start for him, getting a big 20-plus second lead over both of his rivals. And that lead, unfortunately, may not be there for very long. Here is his Camino or his Camino button skip, starting as normal, but he's going to get R4 inbounds on this one. And he doesn't slash R4 down to 1 heart to reattempt it. Now, this is kind of fine, but when you do this, you basically just have to wait for R4 to reactivate out of bounds. Instead, he's going to slash him off, and he doesn't actually die here. He just gets kind of warped, like super jumped back up inbounds. So he's not going to respawn at that out of bounds respawn point. And that's going to be a tough time loss, and this Dooku skip is going to be an even tougher time loss. Really not a good episode 2 by EJP Man, and that's going to give Laser a chance to take the lead. And as we kind of progress through this mid game, obviously Laser didn't have the best start to the run, but his everything else has been really good. And his lead is going to grow and grow with every passing split. He gets every trick he needs to. It starts to get to the point where like we're not even watching a race for first. That race is just over. Laser is starting to lap the competition, and his pace is incredible. His lead is incredible. He is going to get a 2:19.26 with this one, which is just unthinkable. It's, a 2.5 minute PB. It blows his PB out of the water, blows the PBs of his opponents out of the water. Like, there's not really enough I can say here to really capture how insane this is and how big this is for the rest of the tournament. I mean, first of all, he clears Wazip's final time. He's leapfrogging him by a mile. But coming forward, like, he is now a real threat for top 8, and that's going to shake everything up. What he leaves behind, though, is still a pretty close race for second place. EJP Man in Destiny, first race of the tournament, those who know. Yeah, decent recovery here, though. I don't know why he called him player 2, but, didn't need to. Still gonna, like, have to think on his toes, get him in the left hole. Tough backup to make, but at least he gets through without, the Emperor taking any damage or anything like that. But Daime's gonna have the lead coming into Hoth. First barrier skip, not gonna be successful. I think he's just not pointing like forward towards the camera enough, or maybe he needs to go farther to the right. I think either of those would improve it, but this is kind of the fastest way, right? You want to take like as minimal turn as possible just to make it a little faster. Just a bit too aggressive by Daime. Does finally get it third try. And into the arena now, he's going for the fast waves. Everything looks good until there's one AT-AT that doesn't get destroyed, and he's looking for him and he doesn't find it. And the sinking feeling in his stomach starting to show up. Where is this guy? Have I really just soft locked in a race? And the good news for Daime is that he hasn't. You see the ATSD pop up right there. Does finally get him, but it took him quite a while to get there, so still pretty bad time loss by Daime. And that means EJP Man is back into the lead. Misses that top button with Hom, though. And he's going to try to recover. Doesn't have the angle on Leia to get all 3 of those. And now he's got to take the walk of shame. And it's Daime right back into the lead. And, I've always said that it would be cool if there was, like, more reward for finding skips. It's like it's not the spirit of speedrunning, really, right? The community thing is more what it's about. But still would be interesting if, you could have, like, a competitive advantage for finding skips as we kind of focus on something competitive like Ladder League. So, with that said, it's pretty cool that EJP Man found Dagobah button skip, and Daime is going to give him a lot of time on this level because of it. Very, very bad time here, but EJP Man in the lead. Unfortunately, you know what's going to happen, right? Given recent history, whoever's in the lead is going to give it straight back, and that's going to be in the form of a late force onto R2 here, getting him deactivated and inbounds. And now, once he does finally get out of bounds, he's going to have a bit of trouble on that navigation. He's going to fly just a bit too early here. And not quite. He's just going to be a little bit short of the height he needs to get in bounds. And this DCT is starting to be pretty bad for EJP Man. And this is where I want to bring Colton back. Obviously, he was going to have a 222.32 if he got the deload trigger. These two runners on 223 pace. It's a very close 3-way competition. only one of them can get a spot in Rung 3, whether it's Colton with the leapfrog, or EJP or Daime taking a second place, still avoiding leapfrog and getting a promotion. And here it is. We have, obviously, Colton, just EBB on. All you can do is just shoot these troopers as they show up. This is why we weren't going for bridge skip before GTF, because it's just very slow. As for Daime, he's going to approach. EJP Man takes a bad death here, but Daime is going to be up to bridge skip next. If he can get it, he can actually avoid the leapfrog, but he's going to almost miss that trigger. Does get that eventually. And a chance if he can get this first or second try, he will avoid the leapfrog, but it's just not going to do that. Not going to get it first try, and very few troopers left for Colton to kill. EJP Man chasing. Daime misses it again. The Falcon door finally opened for Colton. Daime has run out of time to get that Rung 3 spot, but now we got to worry about Rung 4. You know, someone here is going to get demoted. You don't want that to be you. EJP Man is in the bridge skip room now, but Daime, with his last chance before EJP Man could have taken it from him, he does get across. So even with the first try bridge skip from EJP Man, he is going to fall to third place. He's going to demote to Rung 5. You know, neither of these runners really put up their best performance, but I think it's really tough when you just get destroyed like this, and it's not because you play badly, it's because Laser played incredibly. You know, if that was Senor instead of Laser, someone we expect to get a time like this, I don't think we would look on this race as badly as we maybe do now, because the expectation wouldn't be a close race. But we expected a close race here, and when that doesn't come through, it just, you know, it makes the runners that lose look bad. But this is sort of a rare case of the runner that won just played incredibly well, that it doesn't matter if you're losing time or not. You're not going to beat Laser when he gets a 2:19.26 in Rung 4. Really absurd stuff from him. And that brings us now to only two more races left. We're going to talk about Rung 2, E-Roadhouse, Anorak, Bricko. Another race where we have incredibly close PBs. 22 seconds separate Evan from Anorak. All three runners have, you know, big point to prove, jockeying for position in these top 8 seeds. They certainly all think they're going to make it there. And only one or two of these runners will have a chance at it after this race. Remember, Senor's 2:19.11 is sort of the time to beat for whoever gets second place. And Anorak's going to start this one off with a bang, going for this invasion out of bounds and nailing it. You know, Anorak, a lot of really good game knowledge, including that skip right there. You know, not a ton of time save, but when you can get it, it's a really nice feeling to start your run. Follow it up with a good drop in Mastic. Anorak's off to a fantastic start. And we're coming up into Theed now, not pod race, because there were no time losses to report on pod race. Everyone got double God Fraud. You know, really fast for everyone, and Anorak especially having a just fantastic episode 1. And that's really what I want to highlight. You know, typically in these recaps, I'm finding time losses, but there were just not really time losses in the early game of this run. They would really feel like wrong to show like the smallest time losses I could find, because that's not the story of what's happening. The story of what's happening is that everyone here is playing incredibly well. And, you know, Anorak getting 1905 episode 1 with saves, that's just insane. Here now, Evan having a great episode 2, gets Pixel Bucket, gets the new, the new camera pan skip in Jedi Battle. He's playing really well. You know, just all three of these runners, it's so close. Nobody giving an inch. Everyone, you know, it really feels like the time differences are actually because of the runners just playing well rather than someone, you know, making a mistake. And that's really the difference when you get a top runner matchup and all of them are on their game. It's Bricko's turn now in episode 4 to put up just a really good time, you know. Fell a little bit behind after Anorak and Evan had such a good first 2 episodes, but Bricko not doing badly himself. He's going to come up and make a lot of waves in episode 4. And our end result of all this is going to be a 2-second separator. Evan in first place with a 106.35. Sorry, Evan has a 106.33. Bricko and Anorak both a 106.35 episode 4 exit. Really good times for all of them, but especially notable that all of them are so close in the early game. Second half doesn't start as cleanly here. We get Anorak with really the worst spider spawn you can get. It's like maybe not even worth going for the trick at this point, right, with that spawn. But he is gonna, do what he's used to and go for the trick anyway. But that will cost him some time. This disco skip for Evan also gonna cost him some time when he misses it. And this is really the worst split we're gonna see from anyone so far. Um, just really struggling to line this up, and he gets caught in the trap a little bit of like when you're just sitting and lining it up for a while, you just think like I'm wasting so much time, I gotta just go for it. But like if you don't have the lineup, it's not gonna work. You need to keep lining it up, keep just trying. You don't. It's just a waste of time to build if you're not sure you're gonna get it. And yeah, Evan gonna be here for a very long time. Last second adjustment there is not what he wanted, and he finally gets it on the fourth try after like 30 seconds in this room, really fiddling around with Chewie's position. So that's going to put him in a little bit of a deficit. He does basically call himself even with Anorak coming into Dagobah, and a bad death is going to pull R2 into the water. Quick little backup reloading the room instead of coming back with R2. I like that, but that's just not going to be good for Anorak, who is already just a tiny bit behind Evan. It's going to pull him into third pretty confidently. And meanwhile, Bricko, while all of these time losses were going on, he kept playing in the same form he was in the first half of the run. He really never gave that time back at all in any capacity, and he is going to get a massive 40-second PB, a 2:17:03 final time by Bricko. It's just insane. Third place, if you take out saves, it's 2:16 and it's second place on the leaderboards. This is a massive statement run by Bricko. And, 2:18s for both Evan and Anorak, it's really not that bad. And certainly for Evan, you're happy to get second place. You're happy to beat Senor's 2:19 and still, keep your promotion into Rung 1. That's going to put Senor in Rung 2. But, you know, you start to worry, like, if Bricko is this good, Dragon just got that time, like, am I starting to, fall out of the elite group of runners? And, Anorak unfortunately demoted to Rung 3. That's really a brutal fate, and not deserved given the time he put up. Alright, one more race left this week, and I have to say it was the most exciting. It's Rung 7. We've seen these runners twice before, right? Both LCQs qualifying in the second LCQ. It was Gamer Olive getting the win that time after a huge deficit early, but it was sort of might not have gone her way if Chess had gone for GTF, if Chess had thought he needed to get first there. But he didn't then, he does now. Two runners will be eliminated right now. And very important for Gamer Olive to get off to a better start than her LCQ runs got off to, because you're just not going to get quite the same bailouts in this run. But as we can see, negotiations, off the buttons, both players have 0 studs. A much cleaner start. The first real shot in this race is actually going to come in Invasion, where Y2 is not going to clip through the tree, and he's going to be watching that Jar Jar cutscene. Pretty tough opening for him. Now, nobody goes for God Fraud in this race, but regular Pod Fraud can still have its share of mishaps. And here, Olive's going to have a pretty awkward speed amount. I don't know if she had called in there, if she would come in bounds, but now, adjusting because she has a lot of extra speed. That's going to bring both players in bounds, and now you are driving the end of this lap backwards. Probably an over-adjustment, right? Hoping to avoid coming in bounds, but, like, if you're going to come in bounds, you'd rather do it closer to the end. Either way, hit the mid-lap. This is lap 2. It's not the disaster that we've seen from some, but it is going to kind of match that Y2 time loss. And now Chess with a time loss of his own coming up, he's just going to fall off of the bricks. And that starts him down a pretty bad path where he's trying to kind of panic force these. Eventually his power-up is going to run out, and so when this attempt doesn't work, he's going to have a lot of trouble trying to force those bricks up again. I mean, the one good news for Chess here is he's not killing any extra droids. He got away with this entire time only killing one droid, so his Seed in Jedi Battle is still going to be pretty good, but his Camino going to be quite bad. And this is the thing with We just watched Rung 2. We watched three of the best runners in the game, and they had no time losses. It was in some way very uneventful because they weren't doing stuff like this and just losing big chunks of time. But when you get the lower level runners, it will be eventful. A lot of things are going to happen, and they're going to keep happening, and they are never going to stop happening. Time losses galore. And honestly, these runners aren't playing badly. It's hard to play consistently. That's what makes those top runners so good, and that's where all of their time goes. But you know, when you try to compare, two 30 level runners, you're just gonna see stuff like two different missed Dooku skips in the same race. And it's just hard, but these runners are still, they qualified here because they're still pretty good at a lot of the game, but the things just continue to happen, and here is really the mother of all things that have happened. Gamer Olive hardlocks. Takes a minute and a half time loss to reset the game and come back into it. Really, really bad. And Chess, not to be outdone, he's coming out of DSC, decent DSC, and he's going to reset the game. Now, you're not supposed to do that. You're not skipping anything at all by resetting the game. You're just adding time. I just kind of forgot what level he was on. Don't know what else to say there. Chess still does have a bit of a lead coming into Ruin, but this library skip is not going to work. And you're really doing his best Zach at BTR impression. He's going to miss this thing a few times. It gets to be pretty bad, and you can imagine, Y2, we haven't really seen from him since that Dooku skip missed, but he is going to take the lead after this Ruin. And suddenly Y2 is in actually a pretty strong position coming up to the boulder in first place. But look at this rotation. Nothing, not even the first targets are hitting. I mean, look, this is going to be the worst boulder I've ever seen. It's already bad. You can say there's sort of a skill issue where, maybe he should have been getting these earlier targets because, you see, there's a target there that he could have gotten, but he didn't have any torpedoes ready. But it's really just unlucky that his torpedoes are taking so long to target because everything he can shoot at most of the time is barely on screen. And this last target is really going to taunt him. I mean, it's going to be bad. It almost comes up on the top there. It's going to roll all the way to the bottom after a little bit of time. And it's going to barely reveal itself. It starts to come up, but then nope, I'm turning around. And it's going to come to the top. It's going to do basically the same thing. Let's get at least... Yeah, not that here. He's not going to hit it here. It's going to come all the way to the bottom again. I was about to say that was the last target. I'm forgetting how long this even was. I put this in the video because I know how long it was, but I'm watching it again. It's like, oh my god, is it really not hitting? And he finally catches a glimpse. This time he does get a bit of a lucky target that this hits. And think about he lost a minute on that boulder. It honestly was pretty close to being even worse if he didn't get good torpedo targeting there. But Chess was now back in the lead into CCT. But this keyboard DV1 it's been a problem for him in the LCQs. It's gonna be a small problem for him once again. Not a disaster yet, but as we come into DVT, on this fly, the out of bounds movement, he's going to go too early. He just loses the edge there. Honestly, not a very common mistake, and he's going to do basically the same thing again. This time he does actually get the fly off, but it's too low. He falls again. Each miss on this takes so much time. You respawn, all the way back on the ground there. And, you combine that with a couple of DV3 misses. No one room in this DCT was a huge disaster, but in total, you can't lose, 20 seconds each in 3 different rooms. That adds up to a minute. That adds up to a very bad CCT from ChessWiz. And that means Y2 has a chance coming into DV3. And it's just interesting. This is the, oldest, simplest trick in the game. But because it's so simple, you can't do anything about it. You just have to hit 2 precise inputs. And Y2's going to struggle with that for really some time. Had a chance to get back into first place, and he really needed it. Y2's the only one here that doesn't go for GTF. So he needs to be ahead out of CCT, and with each miss, not only falling behind Chess, But Gamer Olive, with Chess losing a minute here, with Y2 losing a minute on Boulder, and all this time here, Gamer Olive is going to start to catch up, but she needs to have a much better CCT than the ones we just saw, and she is going to deliver. First try DV1, first try DVT, gets the out of bounds movement, with the helmet into DV3, skips the camera pan, and does not get the trick first try, but a second try DV3 is going to be just enough for Olive to take the stunning 4-second lead out of CCT after being minutes behind after her hard lock. Gamer Olive has the race in her control, going for GTF. If she can nail this, she will win the race. Out of bounds movement, and something's going to happen here. She's going to overshoot, try to come back, hit the wrong transition. Now, the good news is R2 is right here. You can use the panel, you can get back out of bounds, get back to the end room. But the troopers are shooting, and they're going to shoot C3, or they're going to shoot Chewbacca off of his perfectly positioned end room spot to shoot from. He's at the right angle, but if you misalign him even a little bit, it's going to be bad. So you got to shoot the troopers. It's going to be a lot of time lost, and only a 4-second lead. Suddenly, Chess has a chance now. He hasn't gotten first try bridge skip in a run yet. This would be a great time to break that trend. With all of his time lost, Chess has a chance to take first place right now with that bridge skip. He's going to walk into the Falcon at 2:23. It's not there. It's not there. Chess misses the line, and now we're back to Gamer Olive. A chance to take the win. If she can get this, she can still save a little bit of time with GTF in total. Don't give Y2 a chance to catch up, and she's going to do it. Gamer Olive, after being so far behind in the mid-game, another massive comeback, another massive win. And here's Chess's line. You see he's really high up. It looks like it should just be completely fine. But he's going to take that jump a little bit weird, kind of going too far up instead of straight to the left. And that apparently is enough to miss the line. Really unfortunate ending for Chess. I mean, is someone I think we all wanted to see go farther, but I wanted to see all three of these runners go farther. It's tough that two of them have to get knocked out. Um, Y2 as well. I think this is his first run that hasn't PB'd ever. The fast improvement we've been seeing is really impressive, and I hope he sticks with the game. I hope Chess sticks with the game and gets back into the form he was back when he was a top runner. It would be very exciting to see both of them, at the top of the game and keep pushing. But Gamer Olive is the one who gets to keep pushing in the tournament. Moving up, still in the bottom rung. This was not a good enough time for Elite Frog, but certainly she's got to just be happy to be alive. It'll be Quasar and Melovro facing her in the bottom rung next week. And with the recap done, I do want to talk about where this leaves us for the playoff picture. Certainly, Dragon, 1 seed, he's in. Congratulations. And I think it's safe to kind of separate the next week Rung 1 runners, Zach, Evan, Bricko. I think they read as being kind of their own tier of runner just based on, PB, based on especially the times they got this week in the race and just general reputation. It feels like there's a pretty big gap separating these three from the rest. So that's sort of runners 2 through 4. So now there's 4 more spots in playoffs for everyone below. And this next tier, that's 5 runners. So where before it looked like we had a very clear top 8, it was pretty obvious who was going to make playoffs. Flaming Laser, getting his massive PB, has sort of jumped into this tier and suddenly shaken everything up. I do currently rate him above Justin. Obviously, his time was 7 minutes better. Don't really see that as a very reliable metric, but still, Laser lost a minute in episode 1 and still did this in his second run back, no reset setting. That's what really gets me, is that I think he has a lot more room to keep PBing. I think he's actually very close to someone like Senor. If you look at their PBs from, BHP to the end, everything except episode 1, Laser is actually slightly faster in his PB than Senor was. I just think, there's no way he's not going to be able to get that again in a run, and maybe a run that has a good episode 1, gets full Godfraud, has a good negotiations, doesn't have saves. And suddenly he's a low 218 runner just like the rest of them up here. I think the potential for Laser is immense. And what that means is that someone we thought was making playoffs before might not make it. If Laser gets in, someone else is out. And well, it does seem like Justin is going to be that guy. There's plenty of time for him to, improve his times. We saw like he's not going to do that ever again in a few times. You can say that about him in his run. He's going to get a much better time in the future, but we have a very interesting race now on our hands with someone is going to get left out. And this is what I want to focus on. Also, here is the wild card standings right now. This is because there's only been one race. This is both average and best time. They are the same right now. And I have 6 runners on the left. 6 runners are going to qualify directly to top 8, right? Claim seeds 2 through 7. So whether it's those 6 or you might want to swap in like Jared mentally, move someone back to the other side. But it's this leaderboard on the right is really the actual wildcard standings. And I bring this up really mostly to point out that Justin is pretty far behind them. And before, I thought that would be completely fine because he's just going to get the best single time. But, like, imagine Jared is in the wildcard race, or, we saw Laser get that time. He can get another great best time, or Cena, or Anorak, or someone. One of those runners is going to also be in the wildcard race, and I think I might favor them to beat Justin in terms of the final, like, single best time leaderboard. Certainly, like, you can completely ignore Rust for this because Justin is going to be fully derusted by the end of the tournament, and you'll have his chances then to get those good times. But if he doesn't beat someone there, then he has to qualify on average. And that's where it's a big problem. He got a 226, and he's, 2.5 minutes behind the likes of Colton, Wazit, Daime, EJP. It's just a big hill to climb back from. And it's not too much for him to do. It's only, he's 2.5 minutes behind Colton now. If he can just do 30 seconds better every week for the rest of the ladder, that's going to put him above Colton. And I do think Justin is going to be able to do that on average when he's fully derusted. But it's pretty significant to me that he's behind this many people. And, there's so many people, and I'm looking especially at Colton and Wazip for this. If either of them take a big leap forward and they do the laser thing and they get the 219, they are, start playing like it in the tournament, playing like a top runner, then it really starts to get bad for Justin. He is on, I would say, alert right now. He should be a little bit worried about this, but it's not too late for him to kind of catch up and close that gap. We're going to have to see how things progress over the coming weeks. So there's the long-term outlook. For the short term, let's talk about week 2 predictions. Starting in rung 1, we have Zach, Bricko, and Evan, 3 incredible runners, and it's really striking to see Evan having the longest odds of the 3. Obviously, I still view him as just such an incredible runner. But his competition is steep enough that it makes sense. After Bricko gets that PB, he passes Evan on the leaderboard. This would be a 216 without saves. Completely changes the dynamic of what I thought was going to happen. I am still going to side with Zach, though, in this one. I still think he is just the best runner. The consistency is good, and if as long as he doesn't run into someone playing on world record pace for most of the run, I think he'll be fine. Certainly, it's interesting though that one of these runners is going to get last place. One of these runners we're going to know is at best the 4 seed, and they even still have to get some stuff done to make that happen. Someone here might end up feeling pretty underseeded coming into playoffs. Now, for Rung 2, I will be making my pick, but first, we need to hear from our resident expert. Let's hear what Jar Jar has to say about this pick.
All right, welcome to Jar Jar's Lock of the Week for week 2. We're gonna ask Jar Jar what he thinks about the races this week and who's his lock. Jar Jar, who you got for week 2? He says Jared. Why Jared? Oh, Jared fell off. He wants Senor. He wants Senor this week. Wow.
And a couple of bold claims here from Jar Jar saying that Jared fell off, but I think I am going to have to disagree with him on one thing. I think he's forgetting someone. I'm going to be disagreeing with Jar Jar. I'm going to pick Flaming Laser. I say that he is like very much in with that top runner group right now, and I feel like this is my chance to really like show that I mean it. I really think Laser is like right next to Cena. They are Laser and Cena, I think, are incredibly closely matched. I still have questions about Jared's race consistency. I'm gonna go with Laser. I totally understand why someone like Jar Jar would want to side with Senor, who has all this tournament experience, and it's not even a debate that Senor is an elite runner, but we're gonna disagree here. We're gonna see who comes out on top. I'm going with Laser here. Next up, we have Rung 3, Anorak, Wazip, Colton. Pretty fascinating one. Obviously, Anorak, with how good his tournament time was, with how much better his PB is, he is a massive favorite. 1.3 odds for him. And with that in mind, as much as I do think Anorak is the favorite, I'm pretty confident Anorak is going to end up winning this. I see Wazip play. I see his potential. I see the paces he keeps getting. And I think he's really due for a big breakthrough. And if that said Wazip, like, if Wazip had Colton's PB of 219.58, I think we would look at the 11.6 odds as completely absurd. And I do think Wazip is every bit capable of getting that PB. And for that reason, I am going to chase the big points, and I'm going to take Wazip in this race, and we're just going to see what happens. All right, Rung 4. This one, another pretty strong favorite. That's going to be Justin with the 1.58 odds. Not quite as overwhelming, Daime given a chance by the odds makers. And I think I'm gonna then take the favorite in this one. I think I've made my bold claim of the week. I don't need to do much more. I think the D Rust is gonna come through just fine for him. He's gonna, get maybe not a new PB this week, but he's gonna get pretty close to being capable of it at least. And once he's at that level, he is just clearly the best of these three. So I'll take Justin in this one. Rung 5 now, very interesting one. EJP, Phantom, and Charizite. Their PBs are all pretty close together. Their race times, EJP did do the best of the three last week, but nobody really playing close to their PB in that one. I think, again, I'm just going to go for the safer pick. I think EJP Man's still the better runner by a good amount, by probably a bit more than that PB gap shows. I think his consistency is really nice. Seeing him get Godfraud is a really encouraging sign. I'm going to go for EJP Man in this one. And finally, Rung 6, Quasar Mellowbro Olive. Certainly, a very informed Quasar would be just an obvious pick here. And 2.3 odds is like actually pretty generous given that PB gap. If everything was normal here, you would be seeing like 1.4, and I would maybe still be taking it. The problem is I just don't know if Quasar is doing the D-Rust work. I at least haven't heard about it. I looked at his therun.gg, and I haven't seen any runs since the tournament race. So I think I don't really want to side with Quasar, who got the 229 last week. It's a really tough call here. And I just decided at the end that I am going to go for Gamer Olive. Just see what happens. I've been on the Gamer Olive train for a bit now. This is probably where it ends, but for 4.7 points, I'll take it to its true final stop here. I'll see what happens and go for Olive. A couple of risky picks for me this week. As long as one of them pays off, I'm feeling very good about it though. And of course, one more great segment to get to this week, the Frog of the Week. And I didn't really take the time to truly explain this one last week because it is pretty restricted, honestly, on who I can pick. It has to be somebody in rung 3 or below, right? There's no leapfrogging if you're in rung 1 or rung 2. And obviously, it has to be someone I think is going to win the race. So that only leaves 4 people, basically. There's Anorak, who I did pick against, but, like, only because of the odds. I do think Anorak's the big favorite. The trouble is that, like, Jared, Senor, Laser, I think those runners are all close enough to Anorak that, like, beating 2 of those 3 doesn't feel like a super likely outcome, but it's a completely viable pick. Um, there's also rung 4. We could take Justin here as a leapfrog candidate, but I think with like Wazip and Colton both in that Rung 3 race, like certainly Anorak, I'm confident will get a better time than Justin still. I don't think he's going to be that derusted. But looking at Wazip and Colton, I think they're both capable of getting like a 220 in that race or something. I think we only need one of them to play well for Justin to not leapfrog, so I think I'm not going to take that one either. And out of the bottom rung, as much as like I think Quasar is the favorite, would be a really strong leapfrog candidate if he was playing. I'm just not convinced by what I'm seeing. So, with all that in mind, I'm going to be picking EJP Man to leapfrog. Now, to do this, he needs to, of course, win his race over Phantom and Charizite. He needs to beat Coolison in Rung 4, right? He's probably not going to beat Justin. And then the biggest thing is he will need to get his revenge for that Rung 4 week race last week. He will need to get a better time than Daime to complete this leapfrog. And I believe in EJP Man. I believe that he will. EJP Man, Frog of the Week. And on that note, that's the end of the video. Another long one. A lot of TCS. It's just going to keep coming. Hopefully, this is going out on Wednesday, and if it does, then races tomorrow night and all through the weekend. It continues to be an incredible time to be a Ladder League fan.